Unfortunately, Jorge Martin's return from injury has been short-lived. The reigning MotoGP champion is hurt again after crashing in the Qatar Grand Prix, being hit by a terrified Fabio Di Gianantonio. Martin suffered extensive damage to the chest area, his cavalcated rib fractures, unfortunately lung trauma, so undetermined recovery period yet, but it's going to take a little while. And we're going to talk about this today from a competitive perspective. Before we go into that, of course, the most important thing for Martin will be to return fit and to return mentally intact, because he's had a truly, truly horrifying start to the season. Has gotten so used to hospital gowns, tubes, CT scans, all that stuff that must do a number on you. And it really is hard to imagine, and you don't really want to downplay the importance of that, the mental toll and all that. So we hope he's back okay, and we hope he's back stronger. But the Aprilia boss, Massimo Rivola, said at the start of their Qatar Grand Prix that this was basically the start of their season, the effective start of Aprilia's season, the real start of Aprilia's season. And it's a false start. It's turned out. Simon, what can we actually say about the project now?
That's a good question, because at the minute I still think we have really very little understanding of where the whole Aprilia project is. We're looking at we're measuring without the benchmark of essentially anyone from last year who was competitive on the bike, with the only rider that has remained from last year to this year being Raul Fernandez, who's struggling, as he's admitted quite openly recently, struggling mentally to find what he needs to perform on the bike. But as well as that, it just isn't working on a race bike. It sounds like he's making big sweeping changes every weekend, largely at the request of Aprilia to help them gather data and test different things. So he's not the benchmark that we'd maybe, and Aprilia had definitely hoped he would be coming into this season. New signing Marco Bezzecchi is, confused seems to be the best word to describe Bezzecchi's start to the season, because there's been flashes of pace, especially in testing, but we've yet to see them kind of meaningfully transfer into a competitive race weekend where he's able to put together a whole, Friday, Saturday, Sunday package and deliver something strong at the end of it. He's managed to clinch a few results. He's managed to scrape a few half-decent performances by sort of grinding through the field after maybe a bad qualifying or something like that, but certainly not the level of overall performance that we would have expected from him, even based on his preseason form. And then, of course, there's Rookie Ayagura, who has been phenomenal. But are we, we don't know if we're in a situation where we're seeing a rider who's truly come into this championship as a phenomenon after a solid competitive Moto2 season, or whether we're seeing, signs that the bike is very, very good. And until we get Jorge Martin back into the field, until we throw a fully fit world champion onto this bike and let him ride it and let him see what he can do with it, it's going to continue to be this question mark hanging over the entire project of where their level is. And with the latest injuries, with what he's unfortunately suffered in Qatar, I think the road to full recovery, full fitness, full health, and being back in the bike and really truly the way we want to see him back in the bike is maybe as far as months away at this point.
Yeah, and of course Aprilia has at least some Martin data now from this weekend, but is it genuine Martin data? Is it real representative Martin data? We know, for instance, that in qualifying, even though sort of maybe the end lap time wasn't so bad, but we know that he wasn't pushing as hard as he could be pushing, and specifically he had the fear of injury in mind while trying to limit his risk taking in qualifying. So we specifically do not know what this bike is capable of over one lap. From what we've heard from Martin in Qatar, we still even don't know how well he gels with this bike, do we?
No, I mean, that was kind of fundamentally every media session we did with him over the weekend on Thursday, and then on Friday and Saturday after he'd rode the bike. The main focus of those debriefs, of those media sessions, weren't about how the bike was or where the bike was strong. It was about his own physical condition and how he was coping and adapting with the fact that he has spent 3 races sitting at home on the sofa not riding a bike, the fact that he's still recovering from injury, the fact that he's still weak in certain parts of his body. And while all those factors are there, and while he went into a Saturday not knowing if he'd be able to finish the race on Sunday, was quite open about that, even as late as Friday afternoon. Um, you know, you're not going to get meaningful data from that. You're not going to get anything that really truly shows the performance or the abilities of your rider whenever they're running around wondering whether or not they're going to have the energy and the pain tolerance to see a checkered flag on Sunday afternoon.
Lorenzo Savadori, the Aprilia test rider, in what the times he's faced the media, he has been pretty adamant that he believes the 2025 Aprilia is a significant step forward. And I think that's just generally been the vibe from the Aprilia camp. But more recently, Raul Fernandez has struggled with the bike, I think, in the faster corners. Marco Bezzecchi has consistently mentioned, the issue of rear stability and putting power on the ground. Do you believe in the 2025 Aprilia now? Because we did believe in the preseason. How do you feel now?
I mean, some of those issues, they're the same issues that were there last year. And it seems like they're all very much connected to, this kind of fairly radical, even by MotoGP standards, aero package that's all designed to help create ground effect in corners. That comes as a compromise in terms of stability, which is pretty normal, let's be honest. We see this in MotoGP bikes all the time, don't we? We make a bike better in one place and we lose in another. And that kind of stability has always been a hallmark of the Aprilia. I've lost count of how many times I've heard other riders, even when the bike wasn't very good, describe it as feeling like it was on rails through corners. So there's always give and take. And I don't think that we've, by any stretch of the imagination, seen enough to think that is either gone or got better or got worse. I think that what we're seeing is a team that still haven't actually put together the full package, that haven't got the best balance out of this bike, rather than a team that has decided that this bike isn't working very well. Whenever riders are still making big changes kind of across the board, that hints that there is a sweet spot that they've not found and that they're trying really hard to find. And whenever you've got the only rider who's not making big changes to the bike, the rookie, performing the best on the bike, that also makes me think that actually this is pretty good. But the problem right now is finding the right balance, finding the right setup, and that's going to be, well, I don't know. That's the sort of thing that can click together and come all at once for a rider. It's the sort of thing you can spend all season chasing. I think we saw that last year, didn't we, with Marc Marquez and the Gresini bike, where he spent all season, the first half of the season, trying to find the new sweet spot for this new Michelin rear tire and that older bike. And then suddenly it clicked and he was winning races. There's an element of that to Aprilia. And right now they're probably suffering and struggling quite badly from the fact that Jorge Martin isn't there contributing his data to the pot to help and find it.
Well, let's recap a little bit how we've ended up here, because I think there's an important question. Obviously, the signing of Agura has been a massive smash success. He had his sort of first bad race in Qatar, chewed up the front, but who cares? For a rookie, that's totally fine. On the other side of the lineup, the full refresh, basically, apart from Raul Fernandez, we know that wasn't entirely in Aprilia's hands. Aleix Espargaro retired. He couldn't quite hang on to him as a test rider, just he wasn't quite feeling it. Maybe terms weren't right. Maybe just staying around didn't feel right. Maverick Vinales, I think they did want to hang on to, or at least they always say they did, and they couldn't quite make it work. Miguel Oliveira was deemed expendable, but I think there was also an interest within Aprilia, as much of a vote as had, to keep him if it could, which in the end it couldn't. Does some blame lie with the manufacturer, with the way how it's played this whole situation? Obviously it can't have foreseen what was going to happen with Jorge Martin, and it played a blinder to get him in the first place. But does some blame lie in not ensuring more lineup continuity? Because the only lineup continuity is a rider who, as talented as he is, Raul Fernandez, we know he's very talented, but is still effectively unproven as a rider who can string a MotoGP weekend together. No offense to him.
I mean, I think it's hard to fault the rider lineup, because they've got they've got the reigning world champion, and kind of everything else pales into insignificance in comparison to that. It's just that he's had the most horrendous luck for the 3 times now. But that is a factor that no one could ever have predicted to start this season. No one ever expected that we would see Jorge Martin hurt not once but 3 times, and each time probably worse than the one before it as well. This increasing order of magnitude crashes where he's just ended up absolutely battered. I think that we would have all have comfortably said, and probably did comfortably say in podcasts and whatever coming into this season, that the talent of the lineup more than made up for the fact that they were losing a little bit of continuity from the guys before. We do know that they did try. They did try to keep Maverick Vinales, but we also know what Maverick Vinales and his temperament and character can be like, and whenever he decides to do something, he's off to KTM. And he almost proved that was exactly the right decision at the Qatar Grand Prix, didn't he? But I mean, for me, that's the continuity factor is not really something you can fault Aprilia on, given the circumstances, given the way and the timing that they had to make moves in those kind of that hectic month in the middle of last season where everything fell into place for them. I think maybe that if that's what's hurting them right now, it's not because of the decisions they made to end up in this place. It's because of the injuries that Jorge Martin has picked up.